The secret to good journaling is to ditch the blank page. How many times have you started a journal entry with just, "Dear diary, I don't even know what to write right now"? Or maybe you filled a whole page with all of your thoughts only to read it back and realize it was just surface level complaints about your day. When you start with a blank page, you set yourself up for disaster. Our brains are not designed to create structure from nothing. We need direction to turn scattered thoughts into meaningful reflection. So when I discovered prompted journaling, whoo boy, did my reflections change. I was thinking more clearly than ever, and I could actually integrate what I was learning about my thoughts and my feelings into my everyday life in a way that surface level journaling just could not give me. Hint, it's not all about longhand journaling either. So in this video, I'm going to share the 5 essential journaling prompts that have transformed my mental spiraling into actual clarity. By the end of it, you're gonna have a simple mindfulness practice that actually sticks. Oh, also, I have a really cool announcement at the end of the video, so if you're a fan of the channel, be sure to stick around. Okay, let's get journaling. Here's why I think your previous journaling attempts have failed, okay? If you've ever sat down in front of a piece of paper and it's blank, you know that your brain has to do 2 jobs at once. First, you have to figure out what to write about, and then you also have to actually do the reflecting. Your mental energy is going to get split between decision making and actual processing. But if you sit down with prompts and then just give yourself permission to react to them, you remove a lot of the decision fatigue and lighten up your cognitive load so that your brain can do the deeper work of reflection. Basically, we're creating a GPS for your thoughts. We're plugging in the destination and we are enjoying the journey. Or not enjoying the journey, depending on how traumatic your journaling is. You can also think of journaling prompts as mindfulness training wheels. So traditional mindfulness is going to ask you to observe your thoughts without judgment, but when your thoughts are racing, that can feel like pretty impossible. Meditation is going to be an obvious choice for mindfulness. It's what's really recommended, and I will talk about meditation a little bit later in the video, but I find that reacting to a prompt is a really good place to start, making the whole mindfulness process much more easily accessible. So let's talk about the 5 prompts that create real mental clarity. And before you, I do have one of my actual journals. This is just a Stalogy that I keep around whenever I need to do this type of processing. It's not like a memory keeper or anything. And I usually just flip to a random page to get all the thoughts out. One of those random pages is here. We're gonna walk through it in a second. But I've been experimenting with different journaling approaches for a long time, and I've found 5 prompts that consistently help me process emotions, reduce how overwhelmed I am, and then get a little bit of clarity about a situation. So I'm gonna walk you through each one. Not all of them may work for you, but I hope at least some of them do. And because I've been working on these for so long, I have them sort of in my mind, but I'll generally show you how I set them up on any given page. So let's start with the first one, which is worst case scenario planning. So the journaling prompt is essentially, what's the worst case scenario about this thing that I'm dealing with? And then you also want to ask yourself other questions that are follow-ups. So like, what resources do I have to help me get through it, etc. And the reason I like this type of journaling is because nothing paralyzes me like fear. When I face something new or something especially difficult, my anxiety just skyrockets and my brain is like a hamster running on a wheel. Actually, that's a super apt metaphor because I'm running from nothing and running to nothing. I'm just like running. So the journaling prompt I have to solve this is, what's the worst case scenario and what resources do I have to get me through it? I usually start by jumping right into the worst case scenario, bringing my fears to light, and then immediately following it up with resource identification, which I'll talk about when I talk about this spread. But essentially by doing this double question prompt, you're doing 2 things, which is discovering that the worst case scenario usually isn't as catastrophic as your anxiety makes it seem, but also reminding yourself that you're not powerless. So I used this recently when I was really stressed about a project deadline. This is how my journaling for that turned out. My brain fully jumped to the worst case scenario. You might be able to read here that I wrote, I could literally die. That wasn't quite true. Realistically, the worst case scenario I was feeling about this particular project deadline was like, if I don't finish this project or complete this project in time, I could get fired. But I started journaling about it, and I went through a bunch of different worst case scenarios. I could literally die. My boss would be disappointed in me. Her boss would be disappointed in me. I would be setting a bad example for my team, and then they would stop respecting me. All of these worst case scenarios. And by the second half of the journal entry, I started to talk myself down. So what you're going to notice when you do this worst case scenario journaling is like, once you get all the worst case scenarios out, your brain actually like really wants to help you. It really wants to get over the fear. And once you see that the fear is actually like not that realistic or not that big, you can start talking yourself out of it. And I started doing that with all my favorite mantras, which was like, I think a lot about like Brené Brown and how she talks about vulnerability, how that's the key to connection and people appreciate others being vulnerable. And then I talked myself into like, okay, I'm afraid of getting fired, but like realistically, if I just ask for help on this project deadline, ask for an extension, flag to my boss that I am a little bit overwhelmed, like she's going to appreciate that honesty and vulnerability more than she will like ever think about firing me or lose respect for me or anything. And actually that could help me build a better relationship with her and a stronger working relationship. So I started to talk myself through it. As soon as I started to recognize my fears, I started to be like, you know what, these are like not that realistic of fears, and here's why. And so then those further ideas became the resources I could rely on to get me through this problem. And you can really see that on this second half of the page. So I almost always do this type of processing, just straight up longhand journaling. It's how I think the best. But I wanted to show you guys that journaling really just doesn't have to be this kind of longhand journaling. Like if this doesn't work for you, if you find this is not clear, like if you're looking at this and it's just like a block of text to you and you can't actually pull anything actionable out of it, that's totally okay, because you can just do the same thing with a mind map. What I really like about this type of journaling is that it enables me to track my train of thoughts. So I got through all of this, and at the end I had some ideas of my resources, but here is where it really clarified. So I did the same exact thing. I wrote out the worst case scenario of not finishing a project on time. I had everyone will see me as the fraud that I am, and I could get literally fired as my two main worst case scenarios in this. And then again, I mapped through my trains of thoughts. And because you can connect things with lines and arrows in a mind map, it just gets super easy to see how you are arguing with yourself and how you are maybe distrusting yourself at one end and then realizing the resources you have. So I put my worst case scenarios in these bubbles, and then I just branched off my automatic thoughts on those worst case scenarios, how I feared they would come to light. So everyone will see me as the fraud that I am. Obviously, I'm not a fraud, but I was really worried that my department and my leadership would lose respect for me and not let me move up or get new opportunities. I wrote that I would die of shame if my coworkers stopped respecting me. And then I came to the conclusion, like, realistically, my coworkers would not think that. My leadership team has been really good so far. I've not made a mistake like this in the past, really. And what's one mistake, especially if I own up to it and make a plan for it not to happen? So here I'm identifying that one of my resources is actually my own track record of being a really good employee, right? And then I could branch off even further. Failure in general feels really bad, especially public failure, but I'm talking myself through it. I'm relying on these resources. Like I mentioned, this Brené Brown talk on vulnerability. It's like a TED Talk, you could Google it. But mostly I was walking my way through it and realizing like a resource I have is my boss. She will respect me more if I talk to her about this. She is a resource in helping me get over this fear, helping me get through this situation. Often I find at the end of these sort of trees in a mind map, I find what resources I have. Under I could literally get fired, I wrote it's admittedly unlikely. My organization sees me as valuable and I'm popular among the staff. So like getting fired is unlikely, but even if I did get fired, what are my resources to fall back on? My parents would not let me starve, absolutely not. They live really close to where I live and they would definitely support me through this. I have you guys. I have a whole YouTube channel of amazing supporters. You guys are so awesome, and I know you would not let me feel bad about myself for making a simple mistake.
And then of course my friends and family would always be on my side, especially my partner. So I was able to map my trains of thoughts through this, and at the end of these trains, you're always going to find the resources that you have to get you through the worst case scenario. The second prompt I use to talk myself through difficult situations is an emotion identification and cause analysis prompt. So I usually will write something like emotional identification. Maybe there's a feeling. I know how it feels in my body, like I'm getting a stomach ache or something, but I don't actually have a name for it yet. So I need to journal on what the emotion is. And then I also like to journal on where does the emotion come from. Because when you're experiencing a really difficult emotion, it's first of all really hard to name, but really, really important to name, because then it's tangible, it's work withable, it's not some mystery box inside of you. And then second, when you're journaling on where it comes from, you can start to notice what triggers this emotion and think about anything familiar in your past that has triggered that emotion before, either to find ways you've dealt with it before or find a pattern of behavior maybe you didn't recognize you were doing or recognize that somebody else was doing. So for me, I was recently feeling really angry about a project I was working on with a creative partner of mine, and I used this process to identify my emotion and explore my feeling. And I honestly felt like immediately I felt like kind of betrayed. I felt taken advantage of, I felt angry, and I felt kind of blindsided. So I journaled a little bit on what the emotion felt like for me, what I was just generally feeling, and then I ended with these 3 keywords: hurt, betrayal, powerlessness. Especially powerlessness is what I was feeling in terms of emotional identification. And that's all like underpinned by my hurt. And this doesn't take very long. It took like literally just like this amount of text on the page to figure out how I was feeling. So you might journal about what the emotion is, where you feel it in your body, what you've noticed about the feeling over the course of the duration, and then write those keywords out so that you can give your feeling a name. And then I also made space on the page for where did it come from. So this one was really transformative to me personally, because I was realizing that this powerlessness actually comes from like something deep in my childhood, which is hilarious to say. Obviously, like we all have these roots of powerlessness or hurt or fear from our childhood, but I was really able to see like, oh, I've been in situations like this before, and actually I haven't spoken up when I'm in those situations, either because I was a kid and I felt too powerless to speak up, or because I was an adult and all I knew was that feeling of helplessness and I didn't actually know how to vocalize my anger or my concerns. In fact, while I was journaling this, I actually was able to identify a pattern in dreams that I was having. Sounds crazy, but I used to have a lot of dreams about not being able to like scream or yell for help when something scary was happening. Like I had this reoccurring dream about a vampire being attacked by a vampire and not being able to like scream for help. And those dreams went away as I became an adult, but actually while this feeling of powerlessness was persisting in my life due to this unrelated situation, I started having dreams. I started having that same dream again about the vampire. I was like, maybe my subconscious is trying to tell me something. So I ran with that and I was like, okay, yeah, the feeling is powerlessness and it's because I haven't been speaking up and somehow my subconscious is trying to tell me that. So you might also recognize similar patterns when you do this emotional identification, what is it, where does it come from prompting cycle. And like I said, this doesn't all have to be longhand journaling. I also find it really helpful to just like draw pictures of my feelings. So I drew this little like Tangela type of guy and he's just screaming because that's how I felt. When I couldn't scream in my dream, I just wanted to scream out loud on the paper. So I drew a little picture. You can also draw pictures of your feelings if you're feeling them. And it really helps to just see the patterns in your past, give a name to your emotion, then it becomes something you can actually deal with. Okay, before I show you what's underneath this piece of paper, I think it is time to talk a little bit about meditation and mindfulness, just so you can see how these things work together. And to do that, I'd like to talk about today's sponsor, Headspace.
All right, I want to hop in here and talk about something that pairs perfectly with journaling: meditation, and mindfulness. I have been working on this part of my mental health journey with help from today's sponsor, Headspace. How's my mental health? As usual, it's been a little bit of a roller coaster lately between work stress, the constant need to be on for content creation, and just life in general. I've been feeling kind of overwhelmed. And one thing I've always struggled with is actually incorporating mindfulness into my daily routine. I know it's good for me, I know I should be doing it, but between everything else going on, it felt just like another thing on my to-do list. But Headspace has completely changed that for me. Headspace is the everyday mental health app that's proven to help you stress less, sleep better, and feel happier with personalized recommendations from Ebb, their AI mental health companion. Two things that have really resonated with my experience. First, the stress relief. I've been dealing with that afternoon anxiety spike where everything feels urgent and overwhelming, and Headspace has these quick, easy meditations that actually help me reset in the moment. Just 10 days of Headspace reduces stress, and I can genuinely say that I've noticed that difference. The second thing is sleep. I have always been someone who lies in bed with my mind racing, replaying conversations, or planning tomorrow's tasks. But Headspace helps you fall asleep faster and actually stay asleep with their sleep meditations and sleep casts. And here's what's really cool. They just launched this AI companion called Ebb that you can actually talk to about what's on your mind. It's like having a judgment-free space to dump your thoughts, and then it recommends specific meditations based on how you're feeling. Just 10 days of Headspace is proven to decrease stress and increase happiness. And by using the link in my description box or scanning the QR code on screen, you can try it out entirely for free for 60 days. Check it out and see how Headspace might be helpful to you. Thanks to Headspace for sponsoring. Now let's get back to the video.
All right, so the third journaling prompt I want to tell you about is very related to this emotional identification prompt, but it's actually about identifying what's overwhelming you and coming up with possible solutions or next steps. So you want to write down, I'm identifying my overwhelm, what am I overwhelmed by? And then what are the possible solutions? And as you can see, I just do these things with like headers on the page or headers in bubbles, headers like this. If it helps you write out the whole question on a page or type out the whole question, you can write, what is a problem I'm having that's overwhelming me, and what are the next steps I can take to limit that overwhelm? Either method, however you do it, this prompt is going to force you to get specific about what's bothering you and immediately moves you into problem-solving mode. The magic is in breaking it down into these actionable steps, but the identification process is really similar to this emotional identification. So when I did my emotional identification journaling process, I immediately thought that it would be really helpful to give a name to the overwhelm and come up with some possible solutions. Because once I had identified my feeling and identified that I felt like I couldn't speak up about that feeling was a key player in how I was dealing with this emotional situation, I thought, okay, it's time to identify it. It's time to come up with possible solutions in order to actually think about it. So you can do these as two separate journaling prompts. I like how they work together. So I just started with what was over here and ran with it. So I wrote, what am I feeling overwhelmed by? And then I just did it in bullet point format. Again, not all journaling has to be longhand. I did it in bullet point format because it made me feel a little bit more organized in my thinking. And I identified that what was specifically overwhelming me was the amount of work I have to do over the next several weeks, which is impacted heavily by one of my creative partners not really paying attention to the work that they had to do, so it was all falling on me. And I also wrote that what is overwhelming is having to monitor and make space for somebody else's feelings when they should really be doing that for themselves so that we can focus on doing this work together. So it was not just the work, but it was also the mental load of the work. And then I felt like that was pretty simple. It summed up my overwhelm. And then I could journal on solutions to how to handle each of these items. So again, in my possible solutions, I just did these in number format, in bullet point format. I'm not creating complex sentences like maybe I was over here when I was trying to consolidate the chaos in my brain. I was just creating bullet pointed pieces of information. And my solutions were like literally ask for help and guidance from the people you know in your life. And I brainstormed about a few people I could ask. I wrote that I could cancel upcoming social plans so I could focus on my self-care. And then I wrote that I actually have to have a conversation. I actually have to speak up with the person who's causing these problems in my life and address them directly. I even put some sub-bullets of other things I could do related to this particular solution, but you can see that I went from not even knowing what my emotion was to being able to come up with concrete solutions to handle and fix a situation that was complex and confusing. So these two work really well in tandem, but they are different prompts and you can do them at different times for different things. Okay, for the next 2 prompts, I want to talk about a couple of daily prompt reflections because I know a lot of folks like to build daily habits with journaling, but trying to face a blank daily page is just really hard sometimes. So I wanted to give you guys a couple of daily prompts that you could use that I have often used as well. And these come from my daily planner in my Hobonichi Cousin, where I would do most of my daily journaling if I needed to journal on a prompt or if I wanted to journal on a prompt about something that related to my day. I obviously have this journal for other random crap that I need to journal through. I have like a longer form journal for memory keeping and stuff, but for these like little daily spurts of energy that I just need to get out, I often use a daily planner for it. You can literally journal wherever you want. But the first of these 2 prompts is, what is one new thing I learned today? That's it. It's just that simple. This prompt is going to help you actively process and retain the information that you learned by reflecting on it rather than just consuming it. Personally, I find that this prompt is so helpful, especially if I have had a day of just like mindless scrolling, or I've done a lot of reading or a lot of consuming of knowledge, and it's, rolling around in my head and I don't really have any place to put it. I will pull out one of the most important things or most interesting things that I learned and put it down on paper. And so over time, this makes you a lot more observant and likely to extract useful insights from ordinary situations or ordinary things that you read, and remember the stuff that you're consuming a little bit better. So for example, on this page, I wrote about reading the first chapter of a book called How to Read a Book. Genuinely love this book. I am most of the way through it now, and it's like the book I wish I had when I was starting college. But I wrote about the first chapter and I pulled out some of the insights, and like to this day, I could tell you all about what the book is about because I wrote about the introduction and I wrote about that first chapter. And now I just know a lot better and remember a lot better what that book is about. So I did this on a particular day when I had a lot of different, I was learning a lot of different things and consuming a lot of different things. And I gotta say, it really, really helped. Okay, the second of these 2 daily prompts is geared toward the not so fun parts of life. And it is, what challenges did I face today and how did I handle them? Everybody's challenges are personal. You might have gotten in a fight with a friend or messed something up at work or just doom scrolled all day, but this kind of prompt will help you understand those challenges and how you respond to them. You're going to create that self-knowledge. You're going to reflect on challenges you've successfully navigated or unsuccessfully navigated. And then you're going to start to see yourself as someone who can handle difficult situations. So again, these daily prompts are really helpful when they are repeated. Plus, you're documenting your problem-solving approaches for future reference. It's like a win-win. Now, I did this in a really small way earlier in April. Both of these prompts are from April, actually, so that's like fun. I had a really productive April in my journal. I was at work. I had a really, really busy day at work. You can see all the tasks I had to complete at work, and I got only 5 of them done, and there's like 20 here. But I had a super intense day, and I was just feeling really crappy because I didn't get anything done. So I journaled, why did I get basically nothing done today? I was journaling about what challenge I faced and how I handled it. And so I journaled a little bit about that, how I was feeling burnout and how I approached that problem. I didn't even approach this problem particularly well. Like, I didn't even turn my day around or get anything like really good done or fix all my problems or do all my tasks. You can see that so many of these are not checked off. But what I did do was I journaled and helped myself understand what I was going through, and then I used that to integrate these lessons into my long-term approach to solving problems. So I journaled a little bit down here at the end of this, just rambling about what went wrong, about how to stay focused a little bit more. Is there a way I can take notes that don't make my system get disorganized? Can I delegate something instead of just sitting with my super long to-do list and feeling that burnout? So it's a really small section of journaling, but again, I often find that we have those things swirling around in our heads and it feels really big and it feels really overwhelming, but when you get it out on paper, it's literally just this big.
What I love about prompted journaling like this is that it creates the same benefits as traditional mindfulness meditation, but in a way that feels more accessible if you struggle with sitting still or quieting your mind. The prompts work because they give your mind a specific job to do, which is exactly what makes them a good practice to keep in your mindfulness toolkit. Remember, this is not about becoming a prolific writer or documenting every detail of your life. It's about creating a space for self-awareness in a way that actually fits your day-to-day and becomes the first go-to when you're feeling overwhelmed. I would love to know if you have any journaling prompts that resonate with you. Please leave them down in the comments section below. And while you're down there, I have something exciting to share. I am officially launching a newsletter. It's a mix of deeper dives into the topics I discuss on this channel, how to apply these methods in real life, plus other tips and fun life updates. I have a ton of cool plans for it, so if you're a fan of the channel, be sure to get subscribed so you're notified as soon as it kicks up. There's a link in the description box below to sign up with your email, or I will leave a QR code right here on the screen. And if you're looking for even more mental clarity, check out my video on planning as a self-care practice right here and next to my head. Thank you so much for watching, for being subscribed, for being awesome. I love you so much, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.